On Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro signed a decree to create a national cybersecurity council to deal with cyber attacks in the country. The United Nations claims Israel continues to block crucial humanitarian aid missions to Gaza. Greece is hit by heavy fires and extreme weather conditions. On Monday, the fire claimed its first fatality north of the country's capital. Hello, welcome from the south. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro signed a decree to create a national cybersecurity council to deal with cyber attacks in the country. During the Defense and State Council that took place on the same day with members of the military high command and the executive cabinet, the head of state said that the measure seeks to guarantee the liberation and protection of all the country's technological command systems. He added that all institutions, public and private, must be freed and vaccinated against cybernetic warfare. In the same session, Jorge Rodriguez, President of the National Assembly, said that the Parliament will discuss a package of reforms to regulate the use of social networks in the country, a measure that is also advancing in other nations of the world. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro stated that his government is a defender of the United Nations Charter.
We are persevering defenders of the United Nations Charter, and we believe in the United Nations system, but a United Nations system that upholds international law, the right of the people, the right to peace, the right to independence, not interventionism.
Also, the executive vice president of Venezuela denounced that the acts of vandalism that took place in the country after the presidential elections were a consequence of the irresponsible calls of the opposition María Corina Machado and the former presidential candidate Edmundo González.
Hechos que se produjeron a raíz del llamado irresponsable y violento.
The events that took place as a result of the irresponsible and violent call of the violent activist María Corina Machado and that of the former candidate Edmundo González Urrutia resulted in crimes against the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the violation of fundamental rights of Venezuelans, such as the right to life, the right to personal integrity, the right to property, and the right to diversity, which constitutes, as stated by the Attorney General of the Republic, hate crimes, that were also committed on July 29, 30, 1 and 2 of August, in joint work with the Prosecutor's General Office. We have as a balance of the lethal victims, fatalities, 22 people whose cases have been duly substantiated.
In addition, the Attorney General of Venezuela pointed out the seriousness of the hate crimes committed against the people of Venezuela by persecuting and attacking citizens for their political orientation in favor of Chavismo.
No solamente el delito o la instigación a un delito de odio, sino el crimen de odio, que es la...
Not only the crime or instigation to a hate crime, but the hate crime that is the materialization of the murder. Of course, when a person attacks another person motivated exclusively by their membership or a particular social group. Are violent behaviors motivated by the prejudice towards the person by their sex, race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, socioeconomic level, nationality, ideology or political affiliation, disability, sexual orientation. In the Venezuelan case, was strictly to persecute and seek to exterminate Chavismo. There is no doubt that is a hate crime in fusion on attacking and seeking to exterminate people because of their political orientation.
Crimen de odio.
The Venezuelan state continues to investigate the attacks that different websites have been suffering since the election of July 28th. These have affected public institutions and social services of the state. Let's see the details with our correspondent Leonel Retamal.
Even 2 weeks after the presidential elections, Venezuela is still facing cyber attacks, denounced the Minister of Science and Technology. 65% are denial of service attacks, which imply a saturation of websites due to excessive requests for access. During July 28th alone, the authorities denounced that they received 30 million attacks per minute.
When one analyzes the volume of attacks, the sophistication of the attacks, the incidence of attacks, the duration of attacks, this also has to do with an installed technological capacity and with a financial capacity. To attack for an hour, a terabyte of attack, you are financing at least $5,000 for each attack. So we have received 30 million attacks per minute, Mr. President. This means that what is behind the attacks is a great economic and technological power.
At least 20 websites of state-owned platforms and media outlets were attacked. Another 40 are under investigation. The main one has been the state-owned telephone and internet services company CanTV.
So we have a sophistication in the number of attacks, a significant volume in the number of attacks, a significant funding in the number of attacks, and a diversity of attacks, with more than 5 types of attacks targeting the state's technological platforms.
Many of the attacks on the websites affect service pages such as the payment of taxes, the civil identification system, and the Patria system that grants bonds and different services, among others. Even media outlets such as teleSUR were affected.
The big thing is that they are hurting everybody, right? Because, for example, if they attack, what do I know, a state system where any Venezuelan requires it, that person is being affected by the enemies of the homeland, regardless of the ideology of that person.
In response to these attacks, a National Cybersecurity Council will be created to develop defense strategies and legal developments on the subject.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Peruvian Public Ministry assures that the law on crimes against humanity and war crimes enacted by Congress violates the defense of human rights and the autonomy and independence of judges. The Public Prosecutor's Office assures that the law will have a negative impact on the processing of judicial processes in particularly serious cases such as Madre Mia, Umaya, and Galvan Borja, among others. They also refer that the new law violates the autonomy and functional independence of the magistrate since it prevents the prosecutor's office from exercising its function as defender of legality and prosecutor of the crime. The firm also warns of the negative consequences that the law will have on the exercise of the prosecutors. The United Nations claims Israel continues to block crucial humanitarian aid missions to Gaza. According to the multilateral organization, Israel has denied access to the Palestinian enclave to more than one-third of the aid missions since the beginning of August. The UN Security Council calls Tel Aviv decisions a continuing cycle of deprivation and distress for the Palestinian population devastated by the genocidal operation. According to the latest report of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, 198 people were killed and 430 injured in Israeli attacks in less than 72 hours, and as that the blockade of coordinated and aid corps undermines efforts to address urgent humanitarian needs. The Israeli regime bombed several towns in southern Lebanon with international banned white phosphorus munitions. Israeli aircraft fired on the outskirts of several residential areas in the Lebanese territories. The health ministry reported that at least 3 civilians were wounded in the attack. The Lebanese authorities denounced that the attacks by Tel Aviv, which have intensified since October 2023 against southern Lebanon, have caused more than 100,000 people to be displaced. In this regard, they assured that they maintain diplomatic lines with Israel and international organizations to stop the violations committed by the occupation and to achieve a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The acting Prime Minister of Lebanon, Najib Mikati, confirmed that all relevant ministries, departments and organizations have taken measures within the framework of the National Emergency Plan to deal with the Israeli aggressions. In this regard, he emphasized the need for de-escalation to avoid a spiral of violence and the decisive role of the international community. He also recalled that the only way out of the conflict is the implementation of the Security Council's Resolution 701, which establishes the freedom and sovereignty of Lebanon within its internationally recognized borders. The Israeli regime fears that Hezbollah's Al-Radwan force troops will launch an incursion and take over northern regions. Israeli occupation army officers on the northern front consider the threat of a ground incursion by the Al-Radwan resistance in Lebanon as real. According to statements, the Al-Radwan force has the capability to carry out an organized attack and infiltrate a settlement or military site. In this context, the Israeli regime's troops remain alert to a possible escalation of the conflict because they fear that 200 Al-Radwan fighters could take control of the north at any time. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Greece is hit by heavy fires and extreme weather conditions. On Monday, the fire claimed its first fatality north of the country's capital. Fire authorities reported that the body of a 62-year-old woman was found in a store razed by the flames. The victim's acquaintances cannot explain why she waited until the last minute before leaving the store. The fire that hit the Attica region broke out on Sunday in the vicinity of Lake Marathon and has spread, raising several houses and establishments in its path. The European Union Monitoring Service has raised the number of hectares burned to more than 10,000. A 5.5 earthquake has been reported in the Syrian province of Hama. At least 25 people have been injured. According to the health director of the region, Maher Yunus, the victims suffered minor and medium injuries. Panic and fainting spells were also reported, especially in the city of Salamiyeh, the closest city to the epicenter of the strong tremor. The quake struck at 11:56 local time, with its epicenter 28 kilometers east of the city of Hama, according to the Syrian National Earthquake Center. Authorities in Damascus, Latakia, and other provinces where the quake was felt say that no major damage has been reported. In other news, on Monday, the offshore sailing ship of the non-governmental Open Arms has rescued 187 migrants in several rescue operations in the central Mediterranean. Since last August 9th, the organization has been carrying out rescue work according to figures from the Italian migration authorities. 421 migrants had reached the island of Lampedusa in just 24 hours, as of Friday. In the midst of this new wave of migration, Open Arms has been involved in 6 operations, including the distribution of hydration and life jackets to migrants who have managed to reach the island in precarious boats. In one of the rescue missions, they saved the life of 55 people from Tunisia, including children and babies in high-risk conditions. In Spain, citizens protested against mass tourism on the Spanish island of Mallorca. Residents of the island of Mallorca symbolically occupied a section of Ballerman beach to protest against the consequences of mass tourism in the territory. The island is part of the Balearic Archipelago, one of the most touristic regions of the country, where tourism sector causes socio-economic and ecological problems. In this context, the demonstration is added to others that have been presented this year in other Spanish cities against mass tourism. In Mexico, despite urbanization, an important extension of land in the Tláhuac municipality is still dedicated to corn cultivation. For the producers, the corn cultural week is not only a source of income, it is also a way of preserving their traditions. Antonio Aranda, our correspondent, with the details.
In San Juan in Jactopan in the Tláhuac municipality, the 31st first edition of the Cultural Week of Corn, Gastronomy, Art and Culture is held. The gastronomy show consists of 140 exhibitors, one of which is Don Antonio, a fourth-generation farmer and producer of local curled corn.
Most of the people here in town leave off corn and appreciate it very much. My life has always been this, the field. Where am I going? What is it worth? Dedicate yourself to the field, to what you know, and that is what we have dedicated ourselves to planting corn.
For Don Antonio, the conservation of transgenic-free corn is a permanent struggle against the onslaught of international corporations seeking to commercialize it freely for human consumption in Mexico.
The transgenic-free corn is better. It is yellow and this one is white. It has a different taste and it is not the same. The taste of corn and corn. That is why it is important to preserve this corn seed so that it is not lost.
Nowadays, young people have renewed their interest in preserving the traditional methods of planting and harvesting corn, says Alicia Diaz, member of the organizing committee of the Corn Week.
De la Semana del Maíz.
We can find that many young people, especially young people who, for example, are studying agronomy, gastronomy, help you to better choose the seeds, and many of them are working in each of their areas.
With a daily influx of 4,000 people, the Corn Week exposes the seeds and the multiple uses of this crop in the 7 agrarian centers of the Tláhuac municipality, which contributes to the food sovereignty of the capital of Mexico by providing safe food, details this local official. In the context of controversy between Mexico and the United States over the free sale of transgenic corn for human consumption, native producers are working to preserve their seeds free of biological contamination. The Cultural Week of Corn in San Juan Ixtatopan in the Tláhuac municipality is not only an economic meeting for the producers, it is also a motive for resistance to maintain their traditions.
Antonio Aranda, teleSUR, Ciudad de México.
The 18th Gibara International Film Festival in Cuba concurred with the screening of more than 80 films, consolidating itself as a fundamental event for artistic creation.
A new edition of this event, which celebrates cinema, ended successfully in the province of Holguín, where the festival was held since August 6, with the slogan Filma el Oriente. The days served as a stage where not only cinema was highlighted as the only art, but also music, theater, literature, and visual expressions were combined.
It has been very important to have achieved a factory award, a satisfaction of those who have participated in this because the quality of the project has been very important. The results of this award that the juries are making, the justice of this enormous diversity of awards, to have consolidated cinema in construction. I think this festival has been characterized by the level and quantity of theoretical forums and space, technology forums and debates. It has been an impressive thing and a very complete festival with all the artistic manifestations. We are really very satisfied with the results.
The Gibara International Film Festival featured films from 25 countries, which presented works classified in different categories, including 11 fiction feature films, 22 documentary shorts, and 15 animated pieces. In addition to the invited nations, the festival was attended by Argentina, Venezuela, Austria, the United States, Iran, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, among others.
There were works of various types: fiction, documentary, short and long films. We were very pleased with the diversity of countries that were competing, of course Cuba, some co-productions with Spain and Italy, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Brazil. There was a diversity that is always important because this diversity implies an interest in the festival in those countries. I believe that this has been the edition with the highest level, in terms of film screening, in the films that have participated, but above all in the theoretical events. The theoretical events have been very important, and I believe that they will continue to nourish Cuban cinema. In reality, at the moment that Cuban cinema is going through, this space is much needed.
At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.